Well, I know that the Kiks.adi clan and the Kiks.adi and the Sitka people and the Tlingit people and Indian people, thank you for changing the written record of our history. And it also demonstrates to us that we still have a lot of work to do before us to rewrite the history, or more accurately, the history that's recorded in the textbooks. It is those kinds of histories that are not accurate that really have an effect on our children. When we are depicted as savages and warring people and cast in probably not a very favorable light, that affects our children. And so, Herb, thank you very much for working on that and really contributing to the future of our children, a healthy future for our children. Today we're also very fortunate in having someone who has dedicated his life to the study of Native people, and more specifically to the study of Native languages. He started as a very young man studying Tlingit. When other boys were out playing, Jeff Leer, wanted to learn the Tlingit language. And so he persuaded his father to support him in his efforts to find people who would begin to work with him in teaching him the Tlingit language. And it was our very good luck that Nora Dauenhauer and I met him when he was still a young man, and we further introduced him to Tlingit life outside of the language. So we figured he had to have an understanding of language in its cultural context. So it is our pleasure to introduce to you Jeff Leer, Dr. Leer, or better known to us as Weha.
The Waterman manuscript was written by Thomas E Waterman, who was working for the Bureau of American Ethnology back in the early 1900s. And in June of 1920, the notes from the 41st annual report of the Bureau of American Ethnology say that early in March 1922, Dr. T.T. Waterman, ethnologist, proceeded to Alaska under temporary appointment in the Bureau with instructions from the chief to scrutinize certain native towns in southeastern Alaska. His purpose was to ascertain how many totemic monuments exist there and to get information regarding the carvings. But in addition to the work on the totemic monuments, the observer recorded a relatively complete list of the native place names in the southeastern part of Alaska. Many hundreds of these names were entered on the map of the region, and translations and explanations were obtained from the Indians. The work was fairly complete for the area covered. Now, I should mention that these names were actually from the southernmost Tlingit area around Revillagigedo Island, and actually he worked principally with Pete Williams, who is a member of the Tongass Tribe, actually related to, I believe, to Frank Williams, with whom I worked earlier on. And Thomas Waterman was actually trained, I don't know how this happened, but he was trained in using the writing system that Boaz and others used at the time. And his transcriptions are actually fairly good, probably as good as Swanton's, or maybe even better. Probably not better, but they're quite good. And also he took great pains to work with Pete Williams on getting analyses of the place names. This really helps us to try to figure out what the names are, because he would break them into pieces and try to figure out what each piece meant. And in case the sounds that he wrote were not accurate, this really helps us to figure out what the names were. He recorded, I believe, almost 900 place names. Mostly, as I said, around Revillagigedo Island, but also on the surrounding mainland and islands. He didn't go as far over as the Heenya area, just mostly what we now call the Tongass and Sanya area. The manuscript came to I started working to try to recover the names, to try to provide accurate spellings of the names on the document only a few years back. And looking at the manuscript, it was fairly obvious that many of the names could be retranscribed just from the way he wrote them, because a lot of the place names are descriptive, and like, for example, Chukankaye, which is very recognizable from his spelling, which means grass point. That's just a random example. But there are also a number of place names that I couldn't make out, because either one of two reasons: either they're so ancient that they are not transparent, that is, you can't see what they were. You'd have to actually get the pronunciation from someone who speaks Tlingit or actually has heard the place name. And some of them also appear to be Tsimshian in origin. Especially those over on the mainland. So I first talked to Emma Williams and went over the unanalyzable place names with her, and we were able to retrieve maybe about a dozen of these place names, some of which I had gotten earlier from her and her husband while he was still alive. Then in Celebration 92, I talked to Esther Shayfor. We spent about an hour and a half sitting in the lobby working on place names. And Esther was able to remember quite a few of the place names that were not analyzable. So I had prepared a list of the unanalyzable place names. And Esther and I went through the whole list, and she knew quite a few of them. So I think that probably something like 3/4 of these names we're going to be able to recover in all about 3/4 of these names. I haven't finished going through and writing out all of the names yet, but I would also like to try to involve someone from the Tsimshian area to see if we could figure out what the names are, the names of Tsimshian origin are, and what they mean. Because Pete Williams was not able to provide analyses for these names for Thomas Waterman. Some of the names of Tsimshian origin, I could just mention some of them to show you what I mean. It's not always clear whether a particular name is of Tsimshian origin or not. For example, there's a name which Esther said was Kush, Ham Island. This could be of Tlingit origin, but it could also be it's equally possible that it could be of Tsimshian origin. Some other names like Nakhl sound definitely Tsimshian, or some other ones, Qoneqan, Sheikh, Anahoks. Names like this sound particularly Tsimshian. And these names, by the way, most of them are from the mainland. The names in this area are also particularly interesting because we find what appear to be some of the place names from which some of the major clans are taken. For example, Kiks, right together, very close on the map, near Ketchikan, are the place names Kiks, from which the apparently the clan name Kiks.adi is taken. Also, right near there is Qanach, from which comes Qanach.adi, Siknach. And also, there are a number of place names ending in Nach, like Qanach, Siknach, and others, which some of which we can't quite recognize. For example, there's a name that looks like Katnach, but neither Emma Williams nor Esther Shayfor was able to tell for sure whether this was a correct pronunciation of the name. These names seem to hint that perhaps this might have been one of the earliest areas of prolonged Tlingit habitation, and since some of the major clan names are taken from place names from this area. And they are also of interest because many of them seem to be unanalyzable. So for this reason, we're trying. I would like to ask if there's anyone here who knows place names from this area, if they would be able to work together with myself and Esther to help to recover these names, because it seems like they're very important to an understanding of the prehistory of the Tlingit. That's about all I wanted to say. The time is short, and we have several presenters this morning. I thank you for your attention.